Good morning. My name is Alexander Koscheva, and I am going to be your TA for Pop Culture 1600 this semester. Normally, we would be meeting in person, in class right now, talking about readings and, having a traditional sort of recitation discussion section. Unfortunately, the current pandemic situation has really thrown some wrenches into how academia is running this year. Um, so rather than having that traditional experience, our recitation section has been designated as being online and asynchronous. I set out an announcement yesterday describing what that means, but just to briefly go over it again in case you did the TLDR version of that. We are not meeting in a classroom ever. And we are not meeting online really either. And so what we are doing is having this kind of back and forth video blogging slash discussion board kind of rolling discussion section throughout the week. So to kind of start that process, I'm just going to put up a relatively short video today introducing myself, telling you my experiences, and in response, please either post a 2 to 3 minute video of yourself doing the same, or of course, if you prefer not to have your face on camera, that's fine. Just give me 300 to 500 written words introducing yourself. So my academic life story began in the halcyon days of 2005. I did my undergraduate studies at the University of Michigan. I graduated in 2009 with a degree in Chinese studies, East Asian languages and cultures. Chinese track was the official on my diploma. But mostly I was a Chinese history and Chinese literature guy. And I finished in 2009 when we were having our last national crisis with the housing bubble collapse. And coming out of that, I became a fashion designer. I spent 10 years running a clothing company, doing like heavy metal inspired fashion. And in my sort of auspices as a fashion designer, my primary audience were cosplayers. And my primary sort of workplace was anime conventions. So I spent solidly 100 days a year at anime conventions for a decade. So I was deeply, deeply, deeply immersed in fandom communities for a very long time. And resultingly, I've kind of got to a point in my life where I want to do something other than just make cool leather jackets. So I decided to enroll for this master's program. I spent the past year taking kind of a sabbatical, studying martial arts in East Asia. I spent 6 months in China studying wushu, then 5 months in Thailand studying Muay Thai. And my primary focus as a pop culture scholar at the moment is looking at how popular culture artifacts play out on an international stage, right? So just as I had that experience of being in these anime communities and looking at the way that Japanese cultural artifacts were sort of shaping a facet of American culture and looking at all the implications that has for how Japanese cultural artifacts are being received in America, how potentially this is shaping values and discourse in America, right? Are people who play Kingdom Hearts growing up sort of internalizing a more Buddhist mindset of what the human soul is because of the way metaphysics are portrayed in Japanese RPGs? And then on the flip side of that, I'm also fascinated by the reverse process, right? How are American cultural artifacts being received abroad? What are the Avengers movies doing to present America in China, in Thailand, in Japan, in India, in Russia, all across the world, right? The Transformers franchise is massively, massively popular in China. There is a statue of Bumblebee in front of what seems like every gas station in China. The and that franchise has taken on more and more Chinese producers as it goes on, right? And so there's becomes a question of at what point is this actually a Chinese film franchise that just so happens to have American actors? And this interplay happens across the world in 100 different directions. And each time it does, it forms a unique dynamic of consumer and producer of media. So that's my thing. I also, as kind of a sub-interest, and this is also largely coming out of my experience in the cosplay community, am interested in this concept of para-religiosity. That is, how do popular culture artifacts and fandom communities start taking on the cultural niches previously occupied by religion, right? Both in terms of providing communities and also in terms of providing aspirational stories through which life is interpreted and given meaning, right? And that just as there are Christian communities who sort of interpret life through this story of sacrifice and redemption, I've met a lot of people for whom Dragon Ball Z was this formative story about overcoming struggle and self-improvement. And that occupies this very, I don't think it's explicitly spiritual, but this implicitly spiritual place in their life. And I know questions of religion are extremely sensitive, and so our ability to discuss those is always going to require a light touch, but it is something that interplays with what we're discussing. That pop culture is not just sort of, light ephemera. It's not just, it's not frivolous. It is, in fact, deeply, deeply meaningful. And it is also deeply, deeply impactful, is sort of my other argument for why pop culture studies matter. As some of you may have noted, the current president of the United States, his last job before being the president of the United States was a reality TV star. That's the world we live in right now. And that is I do not think a world that would have been predicted to have come so quickly. So those are my interests. And we will talk about these at length more in the future. In terms of my personal fandoms, I've kind of alluded to them. Obviously, I watch a lot of anime. I watched a lot of anime as a child. I still do as an adult. Anime is great. Similarly, a lot of JRPGs, Final Fantasy, Kingdom Hearts, that sort of thing. I've been involved in tabletop role-playing communities for a long time. More recently, I've been, digging deep into superhero movies. While I was in Thailand to sort of pass my nights when I was done training, I watched and reviewed the entire Marvel Cinematic Universe, and now I have 36,000 words about the MCU saved on my computer. So those are, my interests are broad, but there are some areas of focus, and if these are areas of interest for you as well, I would love to geek out about them. And I'm really hoping that this can be a place where despite the unfortunate nature of this class and not being able to meet in person, because I do really value that class time, we are able to, still educate one another. And so I want to know what you're passionate about. And the expectations for this course, I mentioned them at the beginning of the video. We're going to have to play it by ear a little bit, unfortunately. I wish that wasn't the case, but again, apocalypse, right? It makes things hard. But I want to assure you that just because I'm not there physically present in the classroom with you, I am still very, very invested in this recitation section. I'm very invested in making this the best possible experience that we can have given the circumstance. And I truly do care about your education. I want you all to become more nuanced and insightful pop culture scholars, to take the things that you're passionate about and become critically engaged with them, and to think deeply about the things you like. So, to just briefly go over our course expectations, I'm going to be putting out a video like this once a week. We'll see how long they end up being. I thought this one was going to be 5 minutes. It's already like 12 minutes. And I'm going to ask you to just do a response. And that response, like I said, can either be video. If it's video, 2 to 3 minutes. If it's written, 300 to 500 words. And for this week, what I would like you to do is just introduce yourself. It doesn't have to be as long as this. Actually, please don't make it as long as this, because I do have to watch all of these. But give me either a 2 to 3 minute video or 300 to 500 word written response telling me, right, who you are, your name, your sort of your major, what year you are, all that sort of basic academic business. Preferred pronouns, mine are he, him, his. And then, I guess more important to what we're doing here, tell me about your feelings towards pop culture. Both in terms of, like, if there are themes in popular culture that you're interested in exploring, right? That might be race, that might be gender, that might be religion, that might be, more structural elements. And also just tell me about your fandoms. Tell me about what you get excited about. This is the coolest thing about popular culture. No one is forcing you to read Nathaniel Hawthorne. We are actually getting to talk about things that we like. We're getting to talk about media that we consume of our own free wills. And that is a delight, and that is why I love this subject so much. So, yeah, I think that's it. I'm going over my notes, seeing if there's anything I missed, but yeah, shoot me a response telling me who you are. That response will be due next Friday, not today, a week from today, at noon. And the subsequent prompts will be more academic. They'll be about the reading in class that we've had, and the topics that we're covering. But for now, I just want to know who you are. Additionally, because we are not going to be meeting via Zoom or WebEx or anything like that, if you want to have longer conversations, and I hope you do, because I want to have them, email me and we will set up a time to do digital office hours. It does not have to be serious business about course expectations or your papers or whatnot. It can just be, hey, let's talk about, let's talk about She-Ra, right? Let's talk about Kingdom Hearts. Let's talk about Star Wars. Let's talk about how disappointed we all were with the ending of Game of Thrones, right? this can be a moment to just sort of explore our pop culture passions, but do it with a critical academic lens. All right, thank you so much. I look forward to meeting you all, and I will see you next week.